everybody, welcome to the show. Today's album is a request by a number of you, and me being a fan of the band, I'm happy to oblige. Reflektor is Arcade Fire's fourth album, fifth if you count their EP. Now, I've been a fan of Arcade Fire ever since Funeral, their debut album back in '04. The first time I heard the song Neighborhood Number 3, Power Out, I was enthralled with them. To me, no other band sounded quite like them, and I'm happy to report that this album is no different. It is uniquely and distinctly Arcade Fire. I think it's crazy that the band recorded a lot of this album in an abandoned castle in Jamaica. I mean, how cool is that? In addition to working with their longtime producer Marcus Draves, they also hired James Murphy to produce, who you may know as the former frontman for LCD Soundsystem. Wow, what can I say? The presentation of this album, amazing! It must be the kid in me that loves the holographic paper, and the adult in me loves the sculpture. The piece is titled Orpheus and Eurydice, and it's by Auguste Rodin. He's the guy who did The Thinker, which I know you've seen. But did you know that The Thinker originally came from another sculpture titled The Gates of Hell? It features over 180 small figures that depicts Dante's Inferno. He would later remake some of the figures into much larger sculptures. Some of my favorites include The Kiss and The Three Shades, which is an awesome piece because one of the things about sculpture is that you can never see more than one side at one time. Rodin thought, I'll fix that by making three of the same sculpture and turning each one just a little bit so you could see three sides at one time. Genius. Okay, I'm getting a little sidetracked here. What is this, Art History Rewind? No, it's Vinyl Rewind, so let's get to the good stuff. The cover is a gatefold opening up to what looks like, I don't even know what this looks like. Looks like that weird, it's like sand. Different kinds of sand with water. And it's got the different track listings all spread out through here. On the back, you have this CD looking thing with the Reflektor logo in the middle and tons of fingerprints. Not my fault, it's just a high gloss thing. Moving on to the inner sleeves, I love the design of these. It looks like a zine to me. On the front, you have the Reflektors, which is a pseudonym for the band. They actually played a secret show in Canada under the name. It cost $9 to go to that. On the other side, you get the track listings and lyrics for each song, but it's done in that zine style, even down to the photocopied image. On the other sleeve, you get that zine style carried over. This time, the cover invokes 90s cover art like Pearl Jam's No Code or U2's Achtung Baby. And again, on the back, you have the lyrics in article format, and you have all this business on the bottom. Incidentally, I find it interesting that David Bowie is the first person that they thank. The records come standard on 180 gram vinyl, and I just love how thick these things are. I especially love how sometimes the stamper didn't do a perfect job cutting the excess off, and you have a little bit of the vinyl just curling around the edge. It reminds me that vinyl is more of a craft analog product, even though it's mass produced. I almost don't believe it myself, but hold the presses, I think Arcade Fire just made a dance album. But it makes sense because of producer James Murphy's influence and background. I feel you can almost take each record as its own album. I mean, it's almost implied by the way they're labeled Volume 1 and Volume 2. Volume 1 is much lighter, it's danceable, it's got a lot of pop elements going on, and of course, the label is white. On Volume 2, you have a dark cover with dark labels. The music is much more introverted, and it has that big, epic Arcade Fire sound. But that's not to say there aren't highs and lows to each volume, and each record has its own unique feel. Leading off the record is the first single, Reflektor. What I like about this track is that, yeah, it's got that disco beat, which normally I associate with happy songs, but it's got some minor chords in there. The music overall is familiar. I hear elements from The Clash, Michael Jackson. Talking Heads.
Is anything as strange as a normal person? Is anyone as cruel as a normal person?
Queen.
You had a vision they couldn't see, so they put you down. But everything that you said would happen, it came all around.
But at the same time, it sounds new. It's Arcade Fire, and this is what they do best. My standout tracks are Reflektor, We Exist, Awful Sound, Here Comes the Night 1 and 2, and You Already Know. But in contention for my favorite track off the album has got to be It's Never Over. It takes me places, and I love the way it ends with the lyric, "You're a DC, it's over too soon."
Reflected like a hollow moon, Orpheus, it's over too soon.
It's so true on so many levels. I don't want it to end. I immediately want to go put the needle back and hear the song again. The record ends with this sort of kind of trippy thing. And I think it's a nice way to end the album. The other thing you should know is that the vinyl release has a slightly different play order than the digital release. After the first track, Reflektor, you should hear We Exist, but that track was moved to the other side. The order goes 1, 3, 4, 2, which really isn't a big deal, and honestly, I like the way the tracks are laid out on the vinyl release more. I feel it has a better flow overall. As to why they did this, my hunch is that because you only can fit about 22 minutes of music per side, they had to change the order a little bit out of necessity. It's kind of the unfortunate case that nowadays vinyl is an afterthought. Most musicians aren't thinking, how do we order this for vinyl? But you know what? I'm willing to live with that as long as releases like this keep coming out. I think the album is very good. However, if you're not already a fan of Arcade Fire, this album isn't going to win you over, and honestly, you should look at some of their previous efforts. If you are a fan, I think you're really gonna dig this. You're gonna like their new direction, and there's a lot that's familiar, as I've already covered, but there's also a lot of new territory for the band. I think years from now, we're gonna kind of reflect on this album and see it as a turning point for the band. Let me know what you guys think of this album. Are you gonna pick it up? Are you guys a fan of the band? What do you think about the vinyl? Well, that is all the time I have for you. I want to thank the one-man band George Cochran for providing the excellent music you've been hearing. And I want to thank you guys for watching. Until next time, I am your Vinyl Geek, and I'll catch you on the flip side. Oh hey, you're still here. You want to learn to make this drink I've been enjoying this whole episode? Well, click here to learn all about it. I call it the Flaming Canadian Waffle, and it's inspired by the band Arcade Fire. That's pretty tasty.